The Great Hall of the Eternal Accord was the largest structure ever built in the galaxy. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. 12 massive chairs sat in a circle at the center, each one designed for a different species. For 300 years, humanity had occupied the smallest chair. Today, like every other day, the other species barely looked at them. Ambassador Sujin Lee stood at the speaking platform. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind her sat Captain Taeho Park, Admiral Hyun Baek, and Dr. Yuna Kang. They were the finest minds humanity had sent to represent their species. None of them smiled. They had learned long ago that smiling meant nothing here. The human delegation requests mining rights to the fourth moon of Terra 7. Sujin said. Her voice was steady and clear. The moon is uninhabited. No species has claimed it. We ask only for permission to extract minerals for our colonies. Silence filled the hall. The Malorian delegation shifted in their seats. Their leader, High Counselor Veth, was a creature of blue skin and 4 arms. He had ruled his people for 200 years. To him, humans were nothing more than children playing at civilization. Veth raised one of his hands. I must speak. The council acknowledged him. Veth stood slowly, making sure everyone watched. 300 years, he said. 300 years. And still the humans come to us with small requests. They want a moon. They want scraps from the table of greater species. He let out a sound that might have been laughter. When will they learn that the galaxy does not belong to those who beg? Some of the other counselors made sounds of agreement. The Vorlani clicked their mandibles. The Corvani hummed low in their throats. Sujin did not react. She had heard worse. We do not beg, she said simply. We request, as is our right, under council law. Veth waved his hand dismissively. Rights are earned, Ambassador. Your species has been part of this council for 3 centuries, yet you still act as if you deserve the same respect as those who built empires before your ancestors learned to make fire. Captain Taeho felt his jaw tighten. Beside him, Admiral Hyun placed a hand on his arm. A warning. Stay calm. Do not give them the satisfaction. Doctor. Yuna Kang watched the exchange with tired eyes. She had spent 40 years developing vaccines that saved billions of lives across the galaxy. Malorian children were alive because of her work. Vorlani colonies had survived plagues because of human medicine. None of that mattered in this room. The vote was called. One by one, the species cast their decisions. The Malorians voted no. The Vorlani voted no. The Corvani voted no. Every single species voted against humanity's request. 11 votes to deny. Only humans voted yes. The request was rejected. Veth smiled at Sujin. Perhaps in another 100 years, you will learn how things work here. Sujin looked at him for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just stillness, like the surface of a frozen lake. Perhaps, she said. The council session ended. The other delegations left the hall, talking among themselves. They did not look at the humans. They never did. Taeho walked beside Sujin as they returned to their quarters. How much longer? He asked quietly. How many more times do we sit there and accept their insults? Sujin did not answer immediately. They passed through corridors built by human engineers. The lights above them ran on power systems designed by human scientists. The air they breathed was filtered by machines that humans had invented. The other species used these things every day without ever thinking about where they came from. Do you remember the Third Vorlani War? Sujin asked. Taeho nodded. I was a young officer. We lost 12 ships, saving their colony on Varath Prime. And the Corvani Plague? Yuna's team worked for 3 years straight. They saved 6 billion lives. And the communication network that connects every system in the galaxy, human design, human maintenance. Sujin stopped walking. She looked out a window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. Billions of humans lived their lives, unaware of how little the galaxy valued them. 300 years, she said softly. We have given them everything. Our knowledge, our medicine, our protection. And still, we are nothing to them. Admiral Hyun joined them. He was an old man. his hair white and his face lined with age. He had fought in more battles than he could count. He had buried more friends than he wanted to remember. All for a council that saw humans as lesser beings. "The message is ready," Hyun said. Sujin turned to face him. "You are certain about this?" "I have been certain for 50 years," Hyun replied. "I was simply waiting for the rest of us to catch up." Dr. Yuna Kang arrived last. She carried a small data tablet in her hands. On it were records of every medical breakthrough humans had shared with the galaxy. Every life saved. Every plague stopped. Every disease cured. None of it had earned them respect. None of it had made them equals. "The hospitals are ready," Yuna said. "All human medical staff across the galaxy have been informed. They await your order." Sujin looked at each of them. These were the finest people humanity had ever produced. They had given their lives to serving a galaxy that despised them. And now, they were ready to stop. 300 years, Sujin said again. "We asked for nothing but fairness. We received nothing but contempt. So now, we will give them what they deserve." Nothing. She took out her personal communicator. Her fingers moved across the screen, typing a simple message. 8 words that would change the galaxy forever. "It is time. Begin protocol. Horizon." The message flew across the stars at faster than light speed. It reached Earth in seconds. It reached human colonies in minutes. It reached every human ship, station, and outpost within the hour, and everywhere it went, humans began to prepare. Not for war, not for revenge, simply to leave. Taeho looked out the window one last time. "Do you think they will notice?" Sujin almost smiled. "Eventually, and when they do, then they will learn what we have known all along." She turned away from the stars. That the ones who work in silence are often the ones who hold everything together, and when they leave, everything falls apart. That night, the Eternal Accord continued to function perfectly. Its lights stayed on. Its air stayed clean. Its systems ran without error. The other species slept peacefully, never knowing that the people who kept them safe had just decided to go home. The humans left no warnings. They made no threats. They simply began to disappear. One by one, like stars fading from the sky. The galaxy did not notice. It was too busy looking down on them to see them go. 6 months passed like water through open fingers. The galaxy continued to spin. Trade ships flew between stars. The council held its meetings. Arguments were made, and votes were cast. Everything seemed normal, but something was changing. Slowly, quietly, like a house losing its foundation one brick at a time. Engineer Do-hyun Choi had worked on the Eternal Accord for 30 years. He knew every wire, every circuit, every system that kept the great station alive. His Vorlani supervisor, a creature named Korath, had never once thanked him for his work. Not once in 3 decades. Tonight was Do-hyun's last night. He sat alone in the main control room, running final checks on systems he had built with his own hands. The communication array that connected the station to every corner of the galaxy, the life support filters that kept the air breathable, the power grid that never failed because Do-hyun never let it fail. Tomorrow, someone else would be responsible for all of this. Someone who did not understand how it worked, someone who had never bothered to learn. Do-hyun finished his work and wrote his resignation letter. It was short, professional. He thanked no one because no one had ever thanked him. He placed the letter on Korath's desk and walked away without looking back. Korath found the letter the next morning. He read it once, made a dismissive sound, and threw it away. He assumed someone else would take over. There was always someone else. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated itself 1,000 times. Human engineers left their posts. Human doctors closed their clinics. Human teachers said goodbye to their students. Human soldiers turned in their weapons and boarded ships heading for Earth. None of them made speeches. None of them complained. They simply left. Lieutenant Nari Yoon commanded a small transport ship called the Silent Dawn. Her mission was simple: travel to the far reaches of the galaxy and bring home every human who wanted to return. So far, everyone wanted to return. Her ship arrived at Deep Station 12, a relay outpost on the edge of known space. 3 human technicians lived there, maintaining equipment that allowed ships to communicate across impossible distances. Without this station, messages would take years instead of seconds. The technicians were waiting when Nari landed. They carried small bags with their personal belongings. Everything else they left behind. A young Corvani worker watched them board the ship. His name was Tenek, and he had worked beside the humans for 5 years. He considered them friends, though he had never told them so. "Where are you going?" Tenek asked. One of the technicians, a woman named Unji, paused at the ship's door. She had taught Tenek everything he knew about the relay systems. She had celebrated his birthday with him. She had listened when he talked about his family. "Home," Unji said simply. "But who will maintain the station?" Unji smiled sadly. "I left instructions. Detailed ones. You will be fine." Tenek wanted to say more. He wanted to ask why. He wanted to tell her that he valued her friendship. But the words would not come. He had never been taught to say such things to humans. Unji boarded the ship. The door closed. The silent dawn lifted off and disappeared into the stars. Tenek stood alone on the platform for a long time. He did not understand what was happening. He only knew that something important had just ended. Back on the Eternal Accord, the changes continued. The human section of the station grew emptier each day. Apartments that had housed families for generations were now dark and silent. Schools that had taught human children stood abandoned. Restaurants that had served human food closed their doors forever. Ambassador Sujin Lee was the last to leave. She had overseen every step of the withdrawal. She had made sure that every human had a way home. She had answered no questions from the other species because none of them had asked. On her final day, she walked through the empty human district one last time. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Memories lived in these walls. Births and deaths, weddings and funerals, 300 years of human history in the stars. All of it was ending. Captain Tejo met her at the docking bay. His ship, the Homeward Star, would carry the last humans back to Earth. The crew stood at attention as Sujin boarded. "Any word from the council?" Tejo asked. Sujin shook her head. "Nothing. They have not noticed we are leaving. 300 years, and they cannot even be bothered to say goodbye. They never said hello, Tejo. Why would they say goodbye?" The ship launched. Through the windows, Sujin watched the Eternal Accord grow smaller. She had spent most of her life on that station. She had fought for her people in those halls. She had hoped, year after year, that things would change. They never did. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. When the Homeward Star entered the Sol system, Sujin felt something she had not felt in decades. Peace. Earth hung in the darkness like a blue jewel. Around it, thousands of ships formed a protective ring. The planetary defense grid, the most advanced in the galaxy, hummed with quiet power. Humanity had always prepared for the worst. They had simply hoped they would never need to use it. Admiral Hyun Baek met them at the orbital station. He looked tired but satisfied. "It is done," he said. "Every human in the galaxy has been offered passage home. Those who wished to stay were given the choice freely. Most chose to return." "How many stayed behind?" Sujin asked. "Less than 10,000. Married to other species, mostly. We told them they are always welcome if they change their minds." Sujin nodded. She looked out at Earth, at the continents and oceans she had only seen in pictures for most of her life. "And the shield?" "Active. No ship can enter the Sol system without permission. We are officially closed to the galaxy." Dr. Yuna Kang joined them. She had been working non-stop since returning home, preparing hospitals and research centers for whatever came next. "The galaxy will feel our absence soon," she said. "The medical supplies alone will cause problems within months." "Let them," Tejo said. There was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. "Let them see what life looks like without us." That night, Sujin stood on a balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. She had been born on Earth but had spent most of her life among the stars. Now she was home. Really home. Somewhere out there. The Galactic Council continued its meetings. Somewhere out there, species who had never valued humanity went about their lives. Somewhere out there, systems built by human hands continued to function, for now, but the humans who had built those systems were gone. The doctors who had cured diseases were gone. The soldiers who had won wars were gone. The engineers who had kept everything running were gone. The galaxy had not noticed yet. It was too proud to notice, but it would. Soon enough, it would, and by then, it would be too late. 1 year after the humans left, the first plague ship arrived at Corvani Prime. It came from a mining colony on the outer rim. The workers had developed fevers, then coughs, then bleeding from their eyes. By the time the ship reached the homeworld, everyone on board was dead except the pilot. He died 3 hours after landing, but the disease did not die with him. Within weeks, the Corvani fever had spread to 3 systems. Hospitals filled with the sick and dying. Doctors worked without sleep, searching for a cure. They found nothing. The council demanded answers. How had this happened? The Corvani fever had been eliminated decades ago. Human researchers had developed a vaccine that stopped it completely. Every Corvani child received the vaccine at birth. The disease should not exist anymore. Then someone checked the records. The vaccine production facility had been run by humans. When they left, they had handed over all their research, all their formulas, all their equipment. Everything needed to continue making the vaccine was available. But no one had used it. No one had thought it was important. For 1 year, no new vaccines had been produced. The existing supplies had run out. And now the plague had returned. High Counselor Veth called an emergency session. His blue face was pale with worry. For the first time in his long life, he looked afraid. "Contact the humans," he ordered. "Tell them we require their assistance." The message was sent to Earth. It traveled across the galaxy at impossible speed, reaching the Sol system in moments. Earth did not respond. 3 more messages were sent. Then 10 more. Then 50. Each one begged for help. Each one promised that things would be different. Each one went unanswered. Commander Rollis, of the Vorlani Collective, sat alone in his office, studying old battle records. He had been a soldier for most of his life. He had fought in the Third Expansion War, the Corvani border conflict, and the pirate suppression campaign. He had won many victories, but as he reviewed the records, he realized something disturbing. In every major battle, human strategists had been present. Human tactics had been used. Human soldiers had fought and died alongside his people. The victories he was so proud of were not really his victories at all. They were human victories. He had simply been there to take the credit. Rollis put down the records and stared at the wall. His entire career was built on the work of a species he had never respected, a species he had ignored at meetings, a species he had voted against dozens of times. Now that species was gone. And Rollis understood, perhaps for the first time, just how much the galaxy had lost. On Earth, Dr. Yuna Kang watched the news reports from the Corvani systems. The death toll climbed higher every day. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Families were torn apart. Children were dying from a disease that had been cured long ago. Her assistant, a young man named Junho, stood beside her. "We could help them," he said quietly. "We have the vaccine. We have the knowledge. We could save millions of lives." Yuna did not look away from the screen. "Yes, we could. Then why don't we?" "Because they have not asked." Junho frowned. "They sent messages. Dozens of them. They sent demands." Yuna finally turned to face him. Her eyes were tired and sad. "They told us they required our assistance. They did not ask. They did not say, please. They did not acknowledge that they had treated us poorly for 300 years. They simply expected us to come running, like servants answering a bell. But people are dying. People have always been dying, Junho. Human people. On colonies that the Council refused to protect. In wars that we fought for species who never thanked us. From diseases that we cured while others took the credit." Yuna looked back at the screen. "Now they know what it feels like. I take no pleasure in it. But I will not help those who never saw us as equals." The months passed. The plague continued to spread. The Corvani lost 3 colony worlds before they finally managed to produce a working vaccine on their own. By then, 200 million had died. But the plague was only the beginning. The Galactic Trade Network began to fail. The communication relays that humans had maintained started breaking down one by one. Messages that once took seconds now took hours. Sometimes days, sometimes they never arrived at all. Trade ships got lost. Cargo went missing. Prices rose as supplies became unreliable. Wealthy systems hoarded resources. Poor systems starved. Pirates grew bold. Without human patrol fleets guarding the shipping lanes, raiders attacked convoys with increasing frequency. Merchants hired private security. But it was not enough. The Outer Rim became lawless. Counselor Veth addressed the council again. His voice was not as strong as it once was. His confidence had crumbled. "We must bring the humans back," he said. "Whatever it takes. Whatever promises we must make. The galaxy cannot function without them," the other counselors argued. Some agreed with Veth. Others were too proud to admit they needed help. The debate lasted for hours. In the end, they sent another message to Earth. This one was different. It was not a demand. It was a request. Polite, respectful, desperate. Earth still did not respond. On the Eternal Accord, the life support systems began to fail. The filters that cleaned the air had not been properly maintained. The temperature controls fluctuated wildly. Some sections of the station became too hot, others became freezing cold. Engineers from 6 different species tried to fix the problems. They had the instruction manuals. They had the tools. But they did not understand the systems. They had never bothered to learn. Do-Hyun Choi had designed those systems to be efficient and reliable. He had also designed them to be complex. Not because he wanted to cause problems, simply because complex problems required complex solutions. Without him, no one could figure out how the pieces fit together. The station began evacuating non-essential personnel. The great hall where the council met grew cold and empty. The lights flickered. The air smelled wrong. Everything was falling apart. And somewhere, far across the stars, humanity watched in silence. They did not celebrate. They did not gloat. They simply waited for the galaxy to understand what it had lost. The lesson was being taught, slowly, painfully, one failure at a time. The only question now was whether the galaxy would learn before it was too late. 5 years after the humans left, the First War began. It started with an argument over medicine. The Malorian Empire accused the Vorlani Collective of hiding vaccine supplies. The Vorlani denied it. Both sides were lying. Both sides were desperate. Border patrols exchanged fire near the Tethys Nebula. 3 ships were destroyed. 200 soldiers died. Neither side apologized. Within weeks, the fighting spread. Old hatreds that had been buried for centuries came back to the surface. The Malorians remembered ancient wars. The Vorlani remembered ancient insults. Without humans to mediate, there was no one to calm the anger. High Counselor Veth stood before his military commanders. His blue skin had grown pale with age and stress. His forearms trembled when he spoke. "We will crush the Vorlani," he declared. "They have stolen what belongs to us. They have insulted our honor. We will make them pay." His commanders cheered. They were confident. The Malorian fleet was the largest in the galaxy. They had won many battles over the centuries, but they had won those battles with human help, human tactics, human weapons, human courage. Now they were alone. The first major battle took place above Vareth Prime. 400 Malorian warships faced 300 Vorlani vessels. The Malorians expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, half the Malorian fleet was destroyed. The Vorlani had lost nearly as many ships. Both sides claimed victory. Both sides were lying. Admiral Hyun Baek monitored the battle from Earth's orbital command. His screens showed every movement, every explosion, every death. He watched without emotion. He had seen too many battles to feel anything anymore. "Poorly fought on both sides," he said to his staff. "No coordination, no strategy, just chaos." "Should we intervene?" asked one of his officers. "No, this is not our war. It never was." The war continued for 2 years. Planets were bombed. Colonies were destroyed. Millions died for reasons that no one could clearly explain. The hatred had taken on a life of its own. Meanwhile, The Corvani withdrew from the council entirely. They sealed their borders and cut all communication with the outside galaxy. They had lost too much to the plague. They had no strength left for other species' problems. The council, once 12 species strong, now struggled to maintain order among 5. And those 5 could not agree on anything. Counselor Veth sent message after message to Earth. Each one was more desperate than the last. He begged for military support. He begged for medical aid. He begged for someone, anyone, to help stop the bleeding. Earth remained silent. One day, Veth received a message from an unexpected source. It was not from the human government. It was from a young historian named Jiho Lim. Jiho had been born on Earth, but he had studied galactic history his entire life. He knew the Council's story better than most. He knew its triumphs and its failures, and he knew exactly why it was falling apart. His message was simple. Hi, Counselor Veth. You asked once why humans would not help you. I will tell you. For 300 years, we built your stations. We cured your diseases. We fought your wars. We asked for nothing but respect. You gave us nothing but contempt. We did not leave because we hated you. We left because we finally understood that you would never see us as equals. You are not being punished. You are simply experiencing life without us. I hope you learn from it. Most of us doubt that you will. Veth read the message many times. Each reading made him feel smaller. Each word cut deeper than any weapon. He had been so certain of his own superiority, so confident that the younger species were beneath him, so blind to everything they had given. Now his empire was crumbling. His people were dying. His legacy was turning to ash, and he had no one to blame but himself. On the Eternal Accord, the situation grew worse by the day. The life support systems had failed completely in 3 sections. Hundreds of workers had evacuated. The great station that had once symbolized galactic unity was now a dying shell. Engineers from the remaining council species worked around the clock to save it. They followed the manuals that humans had left behind. They studied the diagrams. They tried every solution they could think of. Nothing worked. The systems were too interconnected. Fix one problem, and another appeared. Repair one section, and another failed. It was like trying to stop a flood with bare hands. Do-hyun Choi had understood all of this. He had built it. He had maintained it. He had loved it like a child. Now his child was dying, and there was no one left who could save it. The evacuation order came on a cold morning. All personnel were to leave the Eternal Accord within 48 hours. The station would be powered down and abandoned. 300 years of history. 300 years of meetings and treaties and decisions that shaped the galaxy. All of it ending in silence and darkness. Veth was the last counselor to leave. He walked through the empty halls alone, his footsteps echoing in the cold air. He remembered the first time he had come here. Young and proud and certain that he would rule the galaxy. Now he was old and broken and certain of nothing. He stopped at the human section of the station. The lights were off. The doors were sealed. But through a window, he could see the empty apartments, the abandoned schools, the silent restaurants. They had lived here, laughed here, raised children here, built lives that the council had never valued. And then they had left. Quietly, without anger, without threats. They had simply stopped caring about a galaxy that had never cared about them. Veth placed his hand against the cold glass. I am sorry, he whispered. No one answered. No one was listening. He boarded his ship and left the Eternal Accord for the last time. As his vessel pulled away, he looked back at the great station. Its lights were flickering. Its hull was covered in frost. It looked like a corpse. On Earth, Jiho Lim finished writing the final chapter of his history. He called it The Fall of Arrogance. It documented everything. The dismissals, the insults, the votes against humanity, and finally, the collapse. They built a galaxy on our backs, he wrote. They took our work and called it their own. They accepted our sacrifices and gave nothing in return. And when we left, they finally understood the truth, that we were never the children among the stars. We were the ones holding everything together. Without us, there was nothing left to hold. He saved the document and looked out his window. Earth was peaceful tonight. The stars were bright. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was burning. But Earth was safe. Earth was home. And for now, that was enough. 10 years after the humans left, a small ship appeared at the edge of the Sol system. It was damaged and barely functional. Its hull was covered in burn marks. Its engines sputtered and failed. Inside the ship, an old Malorian sat alone. His blue skin had faded to gray. His forearms were thin and weak. His eyes, once proud and sharp, now held only exhaustion. His name was Veth. Once, he had been the High Counselor of the Galactic Council. Once, he had ruled an empire that stretched across 1,000 stars. Once, he had mocked humans for being children among the stars. Now he was a refugee, begging for shelter from the species he had despised. Human patrol ships surrounded his vessel within minutes. They scanned it for weapons. They scanned it for diseases. They scanned it for threats of any kind. They found nothing but a broken old man. Captain Tejo Park commanded the lead patrol ship. He studied the readings on his screen and felt something he had not expected. Pity. Let him through, Tejo ordered. Escort him to the processing center. His crew exchanged surprised looks. They remembered Veth. They remembered his insults. They remembered how he had laughed at their ambassador in the Great Hall of the Eternal Accord. Sir, one officer said carefully. Are you sure? Tejo nodded. We are not them. We never were. Let him through. Veth's ship was guided to Earth's orbital station. Medical teams met him at the dock. They treated his injuries. They gave him food and water. They asked him no questions. He wept as they helped him to a bed. He wept like a child, without shame or control. In the 10 years since the humans had left, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Of the original 12 council species, only 7 survived as functioning civilizations. 2 had collapsed entirely, their populations scattered across refugee camps. 3 had sealed themselves away, too damaged to interact with anyone. The Malorian Empire was among the fallen. War with the Vorlani had drained both sides. When the fighting finally ended, neither had the strength to rebuild. Colonies fell into chaos. Governments collapsed. Billions fled their homes, searching for somewhere safe. Many of them came to the Sol system. Humans had turned no one away. Not the Malorians who had insulted them, not the Vorlani who had ignored them, not the Corvani who had dismissed them. Every refugee was given food, shelter, and medicine. Every refugee was treated with dignity. Every refugee was shown the kindness that humans had never received from the galaxy. Chancellor Sujin Lee addressed the new arrivals from a platform overlooking the processing center. Her hair was white now, but her voice was still strong. Her eyes still held that calm, unshakable peace. Welcome to Earth, she said. You are safe here. You are valued here. We ask only that you treat each other, and us, with respect. The refugees listened in silence. Many of them could not meet her eyes. They remembered how their governments had treated humanity. They remembered the votes against human requests. They remembered the casual cruelty that had seemed so normal. We did not leave to punish you, Sujin continued. We left because we were never valued. We built, we healed, we protected, and we were told we were not enough. So we stopped. What you see now is not revenge. It is simply your galaxy without us. She paused, looking out at the crowd of broken, frightened beings. Species that had once seen themselves as superior now huddled together like scared children. But we are not cruel, she said. We are not petty. We will help you rebuild. We will share our knowledge and our resources, because that is who we are. That is who we have always been. Veth watched from his hospital bed as the speech was broadcast on every screen. Tears ran down his gray face. He had spent his whole life believing that power came from strength and dominance. He had believed that the strong ruled and the weak served. He had been wrong. True power came from building, from healing, from protecting others without expecting anything in return. Humans had understood this all along. The galaxy had simply been too arrogant to see it. A few days later, Veth requested a meeting with Chancellor Sujin. He was brought to her office in a wheelchair, Too weak to walk on his own, Sujin welcomed him without ceremony. She poured him tea and sat across from him like an old friend. "I wanted to apologize," Veth said. His voice cracked with emotion. "For everything, for every insult, for every vote against your people, for every time I made you feel small and unwanted." Sujin sipped her tea calmly. "I accept your apology. How can you be so calm? After everything we did to you, because anger changes nothing. It does not rebuild what was destroyed. It does not heal what was broken. All it does is keep wounds open that should be allowed to close." Veth stared at her. He had never understood humans. He still did not fully understand them, but he was beginning to see why they were so strong. "Will humanity ever rejoin the galactic community?" he asked. Sujin set down her tea. She looked out the window at the blue sky and green land below. Earth had become even more beautiful in the years since humans had returned home. They had invested everything in their world, making it a paradise. "Perhaps," she said, "when we are asked, when we are equals, when the galaxy understands that strength is not measured in age or arrogance, but in what you build, when no one is watching." She turned back to face him. "We are not angry, Counselor Veth. We are simply finished being overlooked. If the galaxy wants us back, it must learn to see us. Really see us. Not as children, not as servants, as partners, as equals." Veth nodded slowly. "I will tell everyone who will listen. I will make sure they understand." Dupgod. Then perhaps there is hope after all. 2 years later, the first human ships returned to galactic space. They were not warships. They were medical vessels, relief transports, engineering crews. They brought food to starving colonies. They brought medicine to dying worlds. They brought hope to people who had forgotten what hope felt like. Captain Tejo Park led the mission. His ship landed on the ruins of a Vorlani colony that had been devastated by war. The survivors watched as humans set up hospitals, distributed supplies, and began rebuilding infrastructure. A young Vorlani child approached Tejo. She was thin and scared, her eyes too big for her small face. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "After what we did to your people?" Tejo knelt down to meet her eyes. He smiled gently. "Because helping others is what makes us human. It always has been. It always will be." The child did not fully understand, but she felt the warmth in his words. She felt the kindness in his smile. She would remember this moment for the rest of her life. On Earth, Jiho Lim added a final chapter to his history. He called it The Return. He wrote about the humanitarian missions. He wrote about the rebuilding efforts. He wrote about a galaxy slowly learning to respect the species it had once dismissed. His final words would be carved into monuments across 100 worlds. They left silently. We should have listened. They returned graciously. We must never forget. The youngest species among the stars taught the oldest a lesson that will echo through eternity. True strength is not about power. It is about what you give when you have every reason to take. Humanity gave everything, and in the end, that made all the difference. The galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time in decades, it had a chance to become something better. And at the center of it all, quiet and patient and unshakable, stood humanity, the species that had left silently, the species that had returned with open hands, the species that had taught the stars what it truly meant to be strong.